So I call this Astrology of Now. The idea is just to use astrology as a tool for us to focus on the present moment, which is the most important. So for those who know me, I use astrology more as an inner compass, as a tool for inspiration and a contemplation to get closer to God. So I don't do prediction as in like in the outer external world what's going to happen, but I see more internally what is most important for us, right? So the chart for tonight, we see that Sun has just moved into Taurus, Moon in Pisces, Mercury in Taurus, and so three planets went retrograde just this week. I mean, Pluto has just gone retrograde in April, and Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn has just turned retrograde in the sign of Jupiter and Saturn in Capricorn. All right. So we'll just talk briefly what that means. By definition, they say that a planet is retrograde when it is moving backward in the sky. So except that it does not really move backwards, but only in appearance. So this phenomena, it happens when the planets gets close to the Earth. And due to the relative difference in speed, we feel as if the planet has moved backwards. It's almost like you're driving and you put on the brakes to stop at the right red light. And the car next to you suddenly just take off. And you just get a feeling as if you have moved backwards, right? So when planets, when at their closest, when they approach the Earth and they're very close to the Earth, it brings about this apparent retrograde motion. So what does it mean astrologically when planets go retrograde? So while most of the time planets, they move in a very direct forward motion, which is considered as the norm. So retrograde is considered being contrary to the normal flow. It could represent an exception to the norm, perhaps a challenge. It could also mean going backwards to rediscover new things. It could mean branching off to another route to seek a different route. So when a personal planet goes retrograde, by personal planets, I mean planets like Mercury, like Mars and Venus. So the transit is likely to be felt in a more personal way, more intense, and requiring us to make bigger adjustments. And as for impersonal planets like Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, when they go retrograde, it feels like, our social reality, our collective consciousness can be felt in a more chaotic, disruptive, right? As is happening now. So now that we know like retrograde happens as an effect of proximity because the planets gets close to the Earth. So on the consciousness level, it means like it invites us to get even closer to the perceived problems that we have. So it's a time to get more intimate with ourselves, so that we can take time to see in a more objective way. So viewed from this way, retrograde is the time for inner introspection and for new perspective. So let's just take a look at the retrograde planets. All right. So the first is Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. So in the last sessions, we talked more about Venus going through the last phase to complete weaving this Venus rose in the sky. So that process takes about 8 years to complete. So from what I understand, Venus started this project back in 2012. I mean, Venus is like always going through a 8-year cycle. It always weaves this rose. So it just goes on indefinitely, right? So, but we noticed like, back in 2012, it started weaving a new rose. And as we recall, many of us, 2012 was the beginning of awakening. And it was an invitation for us to relook at ourselves, revamp our value system. So now Venus has turned into an evening star, so-called, because it's coming to the end. It's going to complete a cycle. So now it's chance to retrograde before it completes, weaving that rose around July. So on a personal note, I feel like this is a great symbol. It's a great time for us to know that whatever we started off, that we our quest for a new value system that started in 2012 is coming to an completion. So it's a good time now to recall, what happened back in 2012 for the last 8 years. How has our value system changed? What are the things we treasure? What do we make of our talents and gifts? What love and beauty means to us? So this is a good time to shut off values that don't resonate with us anymore. And it's a time to really get ready to smile and blossom like a rose again. So like in astrology, every planet relates to certain parts of the body. So like for Venus, it relates to our kidney as well as the larynx. So it's a very larynx, the throat, voice, Taurus, Venus. We're talking about the creative organs for creation. It is now like, more and more people are finding out that we can reproduce at a higher level and that our words can come true, right? So it is a good time, like for me personally, my throat is going through a big revamp right now. And I'm so glad I bumped into Shan and we started this singing together, the Verbeck singing, which is really awesome. And it's doing this, short session presentation on astrology, something I love, something I value. I feel this is so exciting. So look into yourself. What are the things that you treasure and love? Are you able to verbalize it? Are you able to share it, talk about it, be creative about it? And if you love it, it will also add into your own energy system, and that will enhance your kidney, because like kidney we know is the storage of our essence. Yeah. So the next planet that has moved retrograde is Jupiter. And Jupiter, to me, it seems like it is like an army general who is far-sighted, who strategized in our quest to go beyond status quo for the bigger vision. So Jupiter will be in retrograde for about 4 months until mid-September. And if we are always worried about future, it will affect our liver. So according to the Chinese medicine, as well as from astrology point of view, liver is associated with Jupiter. Too much worry, not optimistic enough. And it also affect our sacrum, which literally, is lacking the kind of optimism and the bonus of the hip and the thigh muscle to take a stride forward. So with Jupiter going retrograde this time, it is good to look at our worries for the future and what can we do about it. Jupiter being a very social planet too, it calls for us to also relook at our social role. Are we optimistic about it? And what are the other mountains that is worthy to explore and climb? Because it's always exploring. So ask yourself, which mountain do I want to climb next? Jupiter is also a fire sign. It symbolizes the cosmic fire. In other words, this half human, half animal Jupiter is striving for the quest of the Holy Grail. In other words, it's trying to evolve to become a full human being. And I certainly hope that, and I see a lot of awakening that is happening, and it's all moving towards that directions, towards higher evolution of humans. Next, we look at Saturn, which goes hand in hand with Jupiter, because these two planets work together. From the social point of view, Jupiter provides the broad vision for Saturn to build the social structures and forms around it. So as Saturn and Jupiter, they are conjunct together, that means like this year they are starting a new cycle or a new relationship. So our ability to materialize new visions are called to our attention. This is a time to wake up to our true responsibilities, our commitments. Saturn is about responsibility, duties, vows, contracts, and it is the timekeeper. It keeps track of our fulfillment, whether we have done what we set out to do. So interestingly, I have a relative who just broke his bones, and my mom is going through a huge elimination of the skin. So if anyone is going through such symptoms, the bones, the blood, or the skin, it is a signal that your reality is going through a big shift. and it calls for a lot of inner work to give bones and blood to a new reality. So the next one is Pluto, and it's retrograding with Saturn and Jupiter at the same time, clearly marking that this is the historical time of breaking down of old structures, old social structures, old belief systems and values. Pluto, we know it as the lord of the underground. It is also the lord of death and transformation. Interestingly, it was discovered in 1930s. Back then, it was the time of the Big Depression, and its discovery was as if, to reveal to us in our consciousness that the greatest lessons of abundance has to be learned in scarcity, or that the greatest lessons of light is to be found in the darkest tunnel. So Pluto retrograde provides us this time to really dive deep into our psyche, to confront our unconscious fear that we hold in our lower chakras, especially like the uterus, the abdominal area. So it invites us to dive deep to, confront all these fears, only to be able to give birth to a new humans that is substantial and that is real, because we have really gone through all the suffering of being a real human, and we are really taking on like a caterpillar. We are really transforming, I would say, to the next stage of our evolution. So Pluto is about descent, about going down to the dark. It's about dying in order to give birth to something new. Incidentally, this time I'm also very privy to witness many transformation that's going around me. My sister, my mother, who is really going through the dark night of her soul. She has such a huge illumination that is dark and scary. I mean, you can see her face is really literally white like a ghost. She's so scared. Yeah, going through, the regressions. But interestingly, this is the time that is so bright. I feel, there's so much light and hope that is around. And that's because I've been through it, right now myself. I mean, I've been through my own dark night of the soul. So I could be in a better position to help her through. And the good news is she's finally turning around. And it's really quite miraculous. Yeah. So, with these planets going retrograde, it seems like, we're really going backwards. Yeah. And I'm just being reminded of the proverb 2020 hindsight. That means that it is easy to understand something after it has already happened. 2020, it seems to me, is a year that I understand whatever happened in my life really happened for my highest good. So while it could seem like the whole world is chaotic and there's so much uncertainties going on, I hope that this presentation we must remind us that everything does really happen for our highest good, and challenge us to take on an even higher and broader perspective to include all. So to navigate into this retrograde season for the next upcoming couple of months until at least, October and November, which is like, everything goes direct. I mean, that will be really challenging because, whatever inner work we do now will take form by then, I hope. So I'd like to share this quote with you. It is by a spiritual leader, Omram, and he said, "You have to arm yourself with light before confronting darkness." And I feel like that is really so spot on. Yeah. So many people, they predicted like 2020 will be a year in which a lot of dark secrets will finally see broad daylight, and many people will go through dark night of the soul. They will experience perhaps fearful threats from within or from without, and we can go through the process smoother if we learn to arm ourselves with light. Hello, Winnie. Can I request that you kindly mute your mic?
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
wait.
Mhm.
Sure, can you just give me a second? See where is the
Okay. So we can go through this process smoother if we learn to arm ourselves with light. That means to really go inwards and illuminate ourselves. That means having the ability to be centered, not caught up again in the polarity games by going to the extremes. So caution about being too righteous at this time and being too judgmental. Trust in the process of revelation, of darkness finally embracing light rather than the old mindset of fighting the dark and the old, right? And I would also like to put your attention on the higher aspects of ourselves. While a lot of people are focusing on the retrograde planets or whatever, so that calls for our re-evaluation of how things has happened. Looking forward, contemplate on the higher planets. These two transcendent planets, we call them. They are the Uranus and Neptune. And so the idea of contemplation is, to just to pivot ourselves on a higher plane to see where we would be at the other side when all this chaos has ended, right? So get inspiration from Uranus in Aries. To me, it is about our new identity, our future self, I would say, or our higher self. So just imagine, like, ascension, this so called, has already happened. You're already the enlightened one, ascended ones. And so see from that perspective, how in that skin, what would you be like in that new identity? How does it feel? How will you sit? How will you talk? How will you eat? What things would you do? As my friend Scarlett would say, think from your 5D self, right? Another thing that we could do also at these times is to exercise our faculties of imagination. Play in your mind, imagine the evolved you when you look in the mirror, for instance, or in your mind's eyes. The other aspect we want to look at is contemplating on Neptune in Aquarius, which refers to unity consciousness. So ask ourselves what is good for not just me alone, but for all. So in the best version of yourself, what would you do? It is really about spirit in action. Yeah. So some of the tools that I would like to suggest that we could all do and benefit from this time is to start having some divine thoughts and affirmations every hour. For instance, divine thoughts like, God is in me, I'm in God. Whatever resonates with you. Nothing is nonsense. Everything happens for the best of everyone. Everyone has something to teach me. So when we start exerting our thoughts into our own reality, we will see that it will manifest in our reality. It's as simple as that, right? And after all, we have such great time to be isolated, with the social distancing so-called. So we really have a lot of time to dominate in our own sphere of influence, how we want to see, how we want to think, how we want to feel, and exert that into our reality. This is also the good time for artistic expression of your soul, to let your soul be free. So any artwork that you do, drawing, singing, dancing, do that. And also in action, what kind of kindness or compassionate thoughts can you put into action, right? So visualizations that will affect the imaginative faculty. There are a lot of visual meditations that is presently available. So choose something that resonates with you. So in this retrograde season, with so many things going backwards, I feel like this is really a good time to do what Rudolf Steiner has suggested, which is to do the backward review. This is an exercise I used to do, and recently I was just reminded, oh, I should keep that up and do that again. So you can Google up how to do this backward review exercise. Basically, you can do it like before you go to bed, or you can do it like when you wake up early in the morning. The idea is to, I have quote here, by directing our attentive gaze to what has happened, whether in a single day or in whole phase of our life, we kindle light in our will. Undertaking such a review backwards in reverse sequence or from an external perspective requires a huge inner effort as we establish distance between ourselves and our daily experiences. So what it does is like, you like when you go to bed, you just have a quick recall in reverse sequence what has happened in the day, right? Spend about 10 minutes. You don't have to go through like 30 minutes or whatever, but just do it to the best of your ability. What happened before you go to bed? What was the last thought? How did you feel? And going backwards. Initially, when I first started doing it, I realized that wow, it was really not easy. Times there are times where it was a blank for me, but after I've done it for a period of time, it gets easier and easier. And something good about doing this at night and in the morning time is that it helps us to be connected to that phase in time, before, from the consciousness drops into the unconscious sleep, or from unconsciousness we get back to consciousness, that window that is so important, that allows for so many creative aspects to happen. So as we all know, like breathing and breathing in and breathing out is like the in between, that is so transformational. So also like before we sleep, we fell asleep, that time is also very valuable. And it gives us the soul a new, fresh perspective to go into another dimension. So I know like in the yogic tradition, um, also like we were told to pay attention to do the sadhanas at certain periods of time, especially sunrise or sunset. So if you want to transform, I mean, you just look at the sky, when the sun rises or when the sun sets, those are the time when it's the most dramatic, where the energies really purge, really like hike. So when you pay attention to that, you make your life great, you make your life awesome. So I just want to share this. I was listening to Basha, which is an entity channeled by Daryl Anka, I think, and he calls this time the eye of the needle. And I thought it is such a timely reminder. It's such a synchronicity from me to pay attention because I've been bumping into Matthew 1934 many times in the past months. And it finally dawned on me that we are crossing that eye of the needle now. And it's the time to drop all baggages emotionally, mentally, die, and then, see you at the other side of the needle. So, Matthew 19:24, again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Well, recently I was into this teacher, and he explained it in a very different light. He said something like, why would Jesus said this? What does it make any sense at all? If you if your eyes are open, you can see the aura of the person. It will make sense, because it's like we all know camel has the qualities of it has very little needs. It just survives on essential needs, right? So if you see the aura of the camel is very compact. It's compact to a rich man who is here. It means a lot of greed, so carrying with you a lot of emotional baggages. And so you ask yourself, if you have so much emotional baggages and thoughts and whatever, how are you, how would you be able to enter the kingdom of God? And also, I'd like to share this quote to be reminded once again, what is the end game for us? Going through what we are going through at the social level, and on the inner side, is it not perhaps the time for us to enter the narrow gate? For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Yeah. So, as an ending, I just like to share that hopefully we meet each other at our purest light, because I know that's what really going to happen. And I think I'll do this in the next sharing, because Sun is just going into Taurus. and very different energy from Aries, which is very direct and straightforward. Taurus, Sun in Taurus now is giving us this energy, which is, a circular motion kind of energy. It's going around. It's like, it's representative of our neck, our ability to bring things down into a more material manner. It's also very organic. It's all about purpose, because you've pushed through like an Aries, like a seed that's sprouting. So the next thing is to be sensitive to the surrounding and to see how can you make this seed grow into a more mature seedling. And that's the stage that we are going in right now. So that's my sharing for tonight. Time is running short. So if there's any questions that I may take, I'll be happy to. And I'm also extending a special 30 minutes online support for those who would like a reading to be more objective. And I'm also doing normal readings at a reduced rate, which is $90, 50 off my usual rate, right? You can just let me know if you're interested. So I hope this session has helped you in some ways. Any comments?
At the beginning, you mentioned that you cast a chart you use Vedic chart, but your display is not Vedic chart. I'm a bit confused.
Well, it's not the regular, the squarish, the rectangular, whatever. It's a sidereal chart, yes. It's not a Western chart.
Why do you choose Vedic against typical? Most people generally use the Western astrology. What's your preference?
What's my preference? Well, I used to do Western before, but when I do the Vedic, I felt like it speaks to me more at a soulful level. It's like the Western charts gives me more accuracy in the appearance, in the apparent reality, but the Vedic chart gives me more of the inner reality that is happening. I'll put it that way, yes.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
To me, I don't know, like the roles keep coming up. For me personally, the roles kept coming up these 2 days.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I think the review of the last 8 years is definitely something to really think about, and to also think about the future.
Yes.
This coming 8 years. So after this 8 years is done, we're going to start another 8-year cycle again.
Right.
So
yes.
What is our personal quest?
Mm-hmm.
What are the answers that we want, and how do we manifest the world that we want to live in because of the question that we're asking right now?
Yes. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Shopin, for hosting this. Incidentally, just a couple of days ago, I had a conversation with Scarlett about the hindsight 2020, because the phrase, right? It popped in during a meditation. Mm-hmm. And so when you posted about this, say, hey, do you see Shopin post about this? It's the 100 monkey thing, how we're all connected and how one idea passes on very quickly because we're really one entity, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And I just think it's very interesting because I don't think it's a coincidence we call Perfect Eyesight 2020. Mm-hmm. And this is the only time that we'll have such a number for a year. So it's the year of clarity, the year of like what you say, inner awakenings for everyone. Right. Right now, so that and it's and also about the dark night of the soul. I see a lot of people entering it. Bit by bit, especially with each eclipse, each portal, or each super moon, especially the eclipses. Some people they take it very literally. They think that it's literally just one night, right? But obviously, we know better. It's a phase. It's a period. It can stretch for a few years as well, right?
Yes.
Because it continues. So it's very necessary for people to go through it so that they break up, they break down so they can be reconstructed into more upgraded version of themselves. They earn the virtues, the Christ-conscious virtues of strength, courage, compassion, and all the
Right. Yes.
so very necessary, and collectively is a collective coming of age for everyone. And so I think it's for us, who have been in this for over a decade right now, this is the time that we've really been waiting for. I mean, finally you can see the awakening tangibly. Every day is some crazy development in the news. So it's actually very exciting.
Yes. So, I mean, it's really important to be centered because, we don't want to be emotionally reactive again, like before, to be doing all those, playing those polarity games again, to fight the dark forces or whatever. It's like you said, to focus on the good. What do we want to bring forth? Yeah. Another very interesting thing, we only have 2 minutes left, but I just want to point out, this very wonderful harmonious relationship between Venus and Jupiter and Pluto right now. Wow. So it feels like, those who are aware, you could feel really more harmony, beauty within you, and to know that, the depth of your soul is it's beauty. It's profound beauty. Yes. And we all need that kind of personal values within us to know that we are worthy, that we are blossoming, especially at this time. Self-worth, self-knowing, it all comes back to ourselves. Yeah. We create our own reality, whatever we want to see. Yeah. So that's it for tonight. I hope you are happy with this. Thank you so much.